What's going on? It's Tokyo Tron, and if you're in the anime/manga community, especially on YouTube, you probably saw this slanderous stream from Roger's base, just full of all different types of MHA writing and a ridiculous amount of agendas just being pushed for absolutely no good reason.
In what is hands down probably the biggest surprise upset, Attack on Titan has just lost to My Hero Academia.
Wow, bro.
Dang.
That's so coming.
Alright.
Actually, I kinda did. That was
Alright, well,
Damn.
As a brief disclaimer, Roger was just the host for the video, and he did say that he would vote for Attack on Titan, but since he was a host, he couldn't actually vote and participate in the stream. And just like Roger did, I'm about to go through the bracket myself just to stop all the slander and try to fill it out somewhat objectively. So I made a few changes to the bracket. The first thing I did was I moved Spy Family over to the main bracket, and I put JoJo's in the losers bracket. This is just because we didn't really get too much good stuff from JoJo's this year, and we didn't get too much stuff in general. We only got a couple chapters from JoJo's, and it really doesn't warrant it starting in the winners bracket. And for pretty much the same reason, I also swapped Berserk and Kingdom. We just didn't have that many chapters of Berserk this year, so I can't really warrant it starting in the winners bracket. Now I will say, if we're talking overall manga, just everything of all time, Berserk's definitely going up there, but for the year of 2020, I really can't warrant it starting in the winners bracket. And with the setup out of the way, let's get into the video. So the first matchup we have is Attack on Titan versus Eden Zero. And if you didn't know, Eden Zero is made by the same mangaka that wrote Fairy Tail. So if you watched Fairy Tail, first off I have to say sorry that you wasted so much of your life watching such a low to mid series, and secondly, Eden Zero is actually a lot better. In comparison to Fairy Tail, Eden Zero is actually really amazing. There's a really nice setting in Eden Zero, and the plot is actually pretty decent. With all that being said, however, it's no match for Attack on Titan. I know we're just talking about 2020, but stuff that came before does play a role since context does matter for these stories, and I feel like a lot of you guys are forgetting and sleeping on the fact that Attack on Titan is quite literally peak fiction. Attack on Titan as a whole is probably one of the best mangas and just stories of all time, and right now we're getting really close to the conclusion of the story of Attack on Titan. It's been a fun ride throughout, so really it's just obvious to me why Attack on Titan's gonna go through and push past Eden Zero here. I'm saving some of the talk about Attack on Titan for a bit later in the video, but for now Attack on Titan progresses to the next round and Eden Zero's heading over to the losers bracket. The next matchup is Black Clover versus Kingdom. So the first thing I want to do is just get this out of the way. Black Clover is actually a really good manga. I know the anime gets a lot of crap as the animation quality isn't really up to standard with a lot of other great shows, and also the story is somewhat lackluster, at least in the beginning, and it feels very generic. But believe me, Black Clover actually gets a lot better. This was a fact that was touched on in Roger's stream a bit, just how it seems like the mangaka who wrote Black Clover was kind of forced to write a story that would get him high ratings, so he took a lot of inspiration from different shows, but at least where the plot is right now in the manga, Black Clover is very enjoyable. And overall, I really would recommend anyone who hasn't seen Black Clover to give it a chance. Maybe watch the anime if you want, but personally, I would recommend reading the manga, which is a lot better. And now that I've given Black Clover its fair share of praise, that's all to say that Kingdom absolutely washes Black Clover. I mean, there's really not much to say, it's Kingdom. The only reason why Kingdom isn't even washing this whole tournament is mainly just because of the fact that 2020 has served as more of a build-up arc-ish for Kingdom, and besides that, not that many people have read it. Now, Demon Slayer versus Haikyuu. This is actually a very contentious matchup. Both Demon Slayer and Haikyuu have had their ending of the manga in 2020, and also Demon Slayer and Haikyuu have a very loyal and kind of toxic anime following. Now I will give Demon Slayer its credit, it had a pretty above average story, and the middle arcs and some of the early arcs were actually really spectacular in Demon Demon Slayer, but unfortunately we're only talking about the stuff that happened this year in Demon Slayer, which was the ending of the series. And if you read Demon Slayer, you know just as well as I do how mid the ending of the series was. It wasn't necessarily terrible, but it was very rushed, and it really didn't live up to anyone's expectation. And then on the opposite hand, we have Haikyuu, which also ended this year, and the ending was absolutely spectacular. I'm not gonna spoil the ending of Haikyuu, but everything that you needed to be wrapped up was beautifully wrapped up in Haikyuu, and it even left some potential for a future spin-off or even sequel, following the rest of Hinata's and Kageyama's future career. And because we're just talking about 2020 and pretty much the endings of both of these series, I'm gonna have to give it to Haikyuu, sending Demon Slayer over to the losers bracket. And now Jujutsu Kaisen versus Vinland Saga. Unfortunately for Vinland Saga, it's up against the GOAT JJK. I mean, this year has been absolutely incredible for Jujutsu Kaisen, especially the stuff we're getting in the Shibuya arc, and Vinland Saga with its limited release schedule just really isn't able to compete with it. If we're talking about Vinland Saga all time, I'd say it actually has a chance, but Jujutsu Kaisen currently is just that good, where I'd even say all time Jujutsu Kaisen has the potential to rival Vinland Saga. But especially for 2020, Jujutsu Kaisen's gonna go on, while Vinland Saga is gonna go to the losers bracket. So One Piece versus Boruto. I'm just gonna go ahead and move One Piece on and move on to Chainsaw Man versus Promised Neverland. All jokes aside though, Boruto was actually pretty good this year with the reveal of Kashi and Koji, and what's currently happening with Naruto and Sasuke. Looks like one of them's about to die. And honestly, even though Boruto is kind of mid, it's gonna be a really amazing moment to see that. And for all of you that watched Boruto like I did when the anime first came out, I'm just gonna say, yeah, the anime was absolute trash, but you should go ahead and pick up the manga. It's actually a lot better. I wouldn't say it's as good as Naruto, but it's actually a pretty nice series, so I recommend reading Boruto. And even though Boruto was pretty good this year, all I have to say for One Piece is the one line opening the year, he laughed. Now on to Chainsaw Man versus The Promised Neverland. So I know a lot of you are probably going to disagree with me on this, but I think the ending to The Promised Neverland was actually pretty good. I will agree that the last 2 chapters or so were kind of disappointing to me, but overall the ending was still really solid, and I don't think it's fair to judge the whole of 2020 just by 2 chapters. And in comparison to Chainsaw Man, I do agree Chainsaw Man is really unique and it's different, but I don't know if it's necessarily different in the best of ways. The story is told in a really unique way, but sometimes this unique way of presenting the manga just makes it kind of convoluted, and it's really hard to tell what's going on with the story. And besides that, some of the chapters are really inconsistent, hitting very high highs but also very low lows with every single chapter, which is why I'm gonna have to end up giving it to The Promised Neverland here over Chainsaw Man. My Hero versus Spy X Family. I mean, My Hero this year absolutely turned up. I'm someone who doesn't hate My Hero, but I don't love it. It is kind of overhyped in the grand scheme of manga and anime, but I always really did enjoy the series. But this year, I mean, it was just something else. With the start of the war arc and everything that's just happening in the war so far, this year of My Hero was really just fantastic, and it's hard for any manga this year to even top it. So My Hero's gonna go over Spy Family. Now One Punch Man versus Dr. Stone. Again, if we're judging based on what happened in 2020, without spoilers, Dr. Stone was just a lot better and more consistent. And the consistency is just because we did have a lot less chapters of One Punch Man, and the stuff that happened in the chapters that were released were not as good as whatever happened in Dr. Stone. So Dr. Stone's gonna be going over One Punch Man in this round. Again, I'm not talking about all time or even the anime, I'm just talking about chapters released in 2020, so Dr. Stone just wins. And now on to the losers bracket with the first matchup, JoJo Leon versus Eden Zero. So I'm gonna have to give this match to JoJo's, and no disrespect to Eden Zero, and no disrespect to Eden Zero, I actually really like the manga and the story, but in terms of writing quality and just quality overall, JoJo's has just been objectively better than Eden Zero this year, even though it's still a pretty fun read. Next is Phantom Seer versus Black Clover, and for this I'm gonna have to go with Black Clover. As I was saying before, even though the anime isn't very well received, the manga in Black Clover has been pretty good, and especially this year we've just gotten a ton of back-to-back consistent great chapters. And now we have the Young Goat Record of Ragnarok versus Demon Slayer. And I'm sorry to all of the Demon Slayer stans, and I know you might not want to hear this, but I'm gonna have to give it to Record of Ragnarok. Demon Slayer's ending this year was just so subpar, and Record of Ragnarok so far has been just very, very amazing. Just as a brief little summary of the start of Record of Ragnarok, essentially you have these gods and you have humans. The gods have been protecting humans for a long time, and they have this huge meeting where they decide the fate of humans, whether they want to wipe them out or do whatever. By the end of the discussion, all the gods decide that they'll have one big tournament between the gods and the strongest humans of all time. And in the very first chapter, we get the start of Thor versus Lupu. And this fight is just amazing, and if you just want some somewhat brain-dead fighting manga, then please read Record of Ragnarok. And for me, it's pretty much a better version of Baki if you enjoyed the fights in Baki. Next up, we got Kaiju number 8 versus Vinlan Saga. And this year, Vinlan Saga has really just been setting up for a future arc. And honestly, because of that, with all of the content we got, I'm gonna have to give it to Kaiju number 8. Berserk versus Boruto. Now, hear me out, alright? Just hear me out for a second. Please don't kill me. Please don't flame me. I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna put Boruto over Berserk, but just keep this in mind, right? We're talking 2020. There's only been a few chapters of Berserk this year, and Boruto is arguably the best that it's ever been. You can argue, well, Boruto's trash, so the Boruto being the best it's ever been doesn't really matter. But honestly, Boruto has taken a turn, and the manga's actually very entertaining and pretty well written. So I'm going to have to give it to Boruto over Berserk. Now, keep in mind one thing. If we're talking all time, Berserk absolutely negatives Boruto, but we're talking about the year of 2020 alone, so I'm gonna have to give it to Boruto over Berserk here. Next up, we got Undead Unluck versus Chainsaw Man, and I'm gonna have to give it to Chainsaw Man. Even though I said it's kind of convoluted, it is very unique, and I just need to see a little bit more out of Undead Unluck before I can rate it any higher. But I will say that Undead Unluck is showing a lot of potential to be a future GOAT, and if it continues on the same pace it is next year, I could even potentially see it winning the whole thing. Now we got Burn the Witch versus Spy Family. Now we got Burn the Witch versus Spy Family. Spy Family is a really nice and wholesome manga, but so is Burn the Witch. And as someone who watched or read Bleach, Burn the Witch has all these super unique and interesting Easter eggs, and it also just fleshes out the universe that Bleach was in. And besides just all of the references to Bleach, Burn the Witch actually has a really unique and interesting plot, and I really recommend that if you want to get into Burn the Witch just to see if you'll like it or not, you should watch the OVA. It's just one movie covering the first part of the story, and if you like that, you should probably read Burn the Witch, and you'll definitely enjoy it. Now, Hell's Paradise versus One Punch Man. Hear me out again. If you have read Hell's Paradise and you're caught up with Hell's Paradise, there's no way you're rating One Punch Man above Hell's Paradise. One Punch Man is good. This year for One Punch Man wasn't that good, and this year, the year of 2020, if you're watching this after, Hell's Paradise was just absolutely a lot better than One Punch Man, and it really just negatives One Punch Man. Back on to the winners bracket, we got Attack on Titan versus Kingdom, and this is probably one of the toughest matchups in the tournament, and both are so good. But at the end of the day, you already know we gotta give it to Isayama, we gotta give it to Attack on Titan. So Attack on Titan's moving forward, Kingdom's going over to the losers bracket. And the main thing that set these two apart this year is just that Attack on Titan is at the climax of the story and just a really highly anticipated ending, while Kingdom is more, right now at least, building up to a big arc in the future. And for that reason alone, since it is manga of 2020, I have to give it to Attack on Titan over Kingdom. Next, we got Haikyuu versus JJK. Haikyuu ended this year. It was a really amazing ending, but I'm sorry to say to Haikyuu stans, we gotta give it to JJK. Jujutsu Kaisen is quite possibly the next biggest anime of all time. And by that, I mean the next thing that's gonna hit like Naruto or even Dragon Ball. If I had to describe Jujutsu Kaisen using other anime, it's literally just Bleach done right with a hint of Yu Yu Hakusho and a little bit of Naruto. And because of those reasons, Jujutsu Kaisen is just a really good story. And it really gives off this kind of old school shonen vibe, which I love, like a Yu Yu Hakusho or even a Bleach. Then we got One Piece versus The Promised Neverland. I'm really not going to talk about this too much again. Yes, Promised Neverland ended. I did defend the ending of it a little bit. But at the end of the day, One Piece is One Piece, and even though 2020 is just building up parts in Wano, One Piece was still really good this year, especially with the end of the flashback, and actually what we're getting right now is really promising to see what we'll get for the rest of the year. Now, My Hero versus Dr. Stone, both of these were very good this year, but My Hero is probably at the peak of what it's ever gonna be, and for that reason I have to vote My Hero. Just the war arc, yet again, is just very good this year, just spectacular stuff out of Horikoshi. So now going back to the losers bracket, basically how it's going to work is the things in black are going to go against each other, and the winner is going to go against red to see who moves on to the next round. So first off, I have Black Clover washing JoJo's, just because we didn't get too much out of JoJo's this year, and what we did get from JoJo's wasn't spectacular since it's just building into the main climax of the arc. And even though Black Clover washes JoJo's, Kingdom washes Black Clover. Yet again, the only reason you're voting Black Clover over Kingdom is if you haven't read Kingdom. Then Record of Ragnarok versus Kaiju number 8. I have to go with Record of Ragnarok. Again, it's a really great battle manga, and Kaiju number 8 hasn't given us that many chapters for me to really rate it super highly. But I promise you guys, once Kaiju number 8 gets some more chapters, it's definitely gonna be ranking high next year. And then I actually have Record of Ragnarok also going over Haikyuu. Yes, Haikyuu ended this year. Haikyuu was really good this year, but the pure action in Record of Ragnarok personally tops everything that happened in Haikyuu. I will say that Haikyuu did have a really spectacular ending, but in terms of what we got in 2020, I would say that Record of Ragnarok just had a little bit more since there's more content this year than there was from Haikyuu. But with that being said, Haikyuu's ending was still really beautiful, and I really recommend that you guys read it, or you could wait for the anime. Now Boruto versus Chainsaw Man. Again, hear me out for a second. I'm gonna have to take Boruto. Like I said against Berserk, the reveal of Kashin Koji was huge. What's happening with Naruto and Sasuke right now, with one of them most likely dying very soon, is also huge, and Chainsaw Man has been pretty convoluted. And then Boruto versus The Promised Neverland. Again, I'm gonna have to actually take Boruto over The Promised Neverland. I did defend the ending of The Promised Neverland not being as bad as many people say, but Boruto just has to edge out this manga for this year just based on what we've seen. And now we got Burn the Witch versus Hell's Paradise. I'm gonna have to take Burn the Witch over Hell's Paradise here, but I still really highly recommend you read Hell's Paradise. Hell's Paradise actually started this year, unless I'm mistaking it with something else, but if Hell's Paradise is able to continue at the current rate that it's going at, then I think that one day it has the potential to be one of the top mangas. But for this bracket, I'm gonna have to take Burn the Witch over Hell's Paradise, and I'm also gonna then take Burn the Witch over Dr. Stone. Just cause overall, like I'm saying, 2020 wasn't that great of a year for Dr. Stone. If we were talking about last year with Dr. Stone and everything Senku did with the rocket, I would definitely vote Dr. Stone, but because of the fact that we're just talking about 2020, it's Burn the Witch, and it's not even close. So now we got Attack on Titan versus Jujutsu Kaisen. I think I've said everything that could be said about both of these series, and I've sung all of their praise, but for this year I'm gonna have to give it to Attack on Titan. But with that being said, Jujutsu Kaisen is also in the middle of the Shibuya arc, and I think that by the time the Shibuya arc ends, Jujutsu Kaisen's definitely gonna be way up there, but from what we've seen as of now, I gotta take Attack on Titan over JJK. Now we got One Piece versus My Hero, and again, just hear me out for a second. One Piece is probably one of my favorite anime / manga series of all time, but we are talking about the year 2020. I love One Piece. If it was all of One Piece versus all of My Hero, One Piece negatives My Hero. It's just a wash. It's not even close. But we are talking about the year of 2020. And with everything that we've seen in 2020 of My Hero versus what we got this year of One Piece, I'm gonna have to give it to My Hero. And again, just reiterating, as a whole, One Piece is on a completely different level than My Hero, but for this year, My Hero just etched it out a little bit. Back to the losers bracket, I'm gonna take Kingdom over Record of Ragnarok. Record of Ragnarok is really good, but at the end of the day, it's pure fight, and something like Kingdom just really outclasses it. And then I'm gonna take JJK over Kingdom, just because of the Shibuya arc that we're in right now is really entertaining. If it was next year based on the direction of Kingdom, I might take it to Kingdom over JJK, but right now, I gotta give it to the young goat Jujutsu Kaisen. Then Boruto versus Burn the Witch. That's actually really close. It's kind of weird seeing Boruto and Burn the Witch this close to the finals, but it's just because the seeding was a little bit wonky. But anyway, I'm just gonna give it to probably Boruto over Burn the Witch. Actually, I'm not sure if I'm gonna give it to Boruto over Burn the Witch, but it doesn't matter because One Piece washes both of them and One Piece goes through. Now we got Attack on Titan versus My Hero. With everything that I said about this possibly being the best year and the peak of My Hero, the same can be said about Attack on Titan. We're getting so many different secrets and mysteries revealed on Attack on Titan, and it's also the major climax of the story in just the final few chapters. And for that reason alone, I'm gonna have to give it to Attack on Titan over My Hero for the year of 2020, and honestly, Attack on Titan washes My Hero all time as well in both the anime and the manga. Jujutsu Kaisen versus One Piece, the greatest of all time versus the young goat. I'm gonna have to give it to JJK here. Sorry Gota, I love you. I love One Piece, but this year, what we got in the Shibuya arc was just better than what we've gotten in Wano so far. And finally, Attack on Titan versus Jujutsu Kaisen. Unfortunately, this ending is kind of anticlimactic since we already talked about AOT versus JJK just a couple minutes ago. But like I said before, I just gotta give it to Attack on Titan over Jujutsu Kaisen for the year of 2020. So yeah, I have Attack on Titan winning this bracket. Overall, Attack on Titan is the first, as I said, second place is JJK, third was My Hero, and fourth is One Piece. The seeding was a bit weird for some of these things, but overall I think that this is pretty good in terms of the placements of the quality of these four mangas for this year. Some major takeaways that I want to get across is obviously read Attack on Titan if you haven't. I know most of you are probably on Attack on Titan. Also, if you dropped My Hero, you should really pick it up. I'm not the biggest fan of My Hero, as I said, but this year was actually just really good for My Hero. Finally, One Piece is One Piece. It's always going to be a top 5 manga. It's always going to be good. But this year hasn't been the greatest, but next year for One Piece, I can see it winning, especially if we get the end of the Wano arc. And then some must-reads for the year and just in general. I'm just going to say, please read Record of Ragnarok, and also read Jujutsu Kaisen. Also, one of the really underrated mangas that I think you guys should give a chance is Hell's Paradise. It's pretty entertaining, and it's also a lot more mature than a lot of other manga. It's on the border between a shonen and seinen, and honestly I'm leaning more towards it being a seinen than a shonen. And finally, shoutouts to Roger for his amazing stream, and also shoutouts to everyone that competed in it, but the My Hero wank was just a little too hard for me, and also the One Piece wank was just a little bit unrealistic, considering what we actually got out of One Piece this year. I think that overall the My Hero agenda was just taken out of proportion, and people are looking at One Piece more nostalgically versus what we got in the year of 2020. But that's just my take on the best manga of 2020, and as always, I want to hear what you guys think. So comment down below what your thoughts are and what you guys think the best manga of 2020 is. And also let me know if you want to see me do more of these types of videos than just the normal God of High School content. And if you like the video, drop a like, and to stay up to date with all of my future content, make sure to subscribe.